You know how Rivals players like to say that they don't want role lock because it's going to limit team comp variety, and the team comp variety is just triple support. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to talk about how supports ruin the game because it's already true. You don't have to repeat common knowledge, but instead, what I wanted to address is how team ups are kind of underwhelming. Like, I thought at least that we were able to combine characters to see what combos worked and what didn't. Instead, what we got is NetEase choosing which team ups are valid at any given season. And the team ups are okay. I'm not going to say that they've been horrible in application. It's just that they haven't been as varied and creative as I would have liked them to be. And in some instances, characters are less viable without the team up, and others are overpowered with it. For example, if we look at Mag and Scarlet Witch, when he had that sword throw, I don't know if that's what it was technically called, but I'm not gonna research it. You get the idea. When Mag had that to his kit, it felt like he was complete. Now, he's always been strong, but with that extra little thing that he could do, he could apply pressure, he could do a little more damage, and it was nice. But once they took away Scarlet, it kind of felt like they were hiding a part of his kit behind another character, which was kind of like stupid. They did bring it back with Gambit, but it's like, why don't you just leave that in his kit? Also, I don't understand why Star-Lord can teleport like with a rocket thing. Like, they took away Psylocke's ability to teleport, but Star-Lord has it with Rocket. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then you had the case with Ultron and Iron Man, where NetEase genuinely had the patch to Ultron in the form of an Iron Man team-up. So on his own, Ultron was just okay. He's better now, but he was just kind of mid back then. And then you put the Iron Man team-up on him, and then he's viable all of a sudden. It doesn't even make a new way to play him. Like, he's not faster, he can't do extra crazy shit. It just fixes what was wrong with him. I don't think I've ever seen that where the devs know what's wrong with the character and they don't just fix it. And then you have the dumbass team-ups like the one with Penny and Rocket. They just made that even better. It was already a pain in my ass, and then they added the ability for Penny to gain overshield. Who the fuck thought that was a good idea? You're never being outplayed by a Penny. It's like you're playing a D-Day simulator where you can't even get close, especially if you don't have much mobility. If you're a Magneto trying to push a Penny, you better hope to God that your teammates are actually shooting at the nest and contributing. Otherwise, you're not touching point. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about Invis or Gambit, but this thought came to mind because these two fuckers don't even have an official team up, but it's basically as if they do, because Gambit already has sustain and control, and Invis just basically removes whatever weaknesses he already had left, if any theoretical. So it's not some new way to play, it's just the safest role being made even safer to play. Before we continue though, I just want to say Happy New Year's to all of you out there on the interwebs. Thank you so much for watching the channel, and here's to another year of all kinds of nonsense that I'm going to complain about. I also want to know what your least liked team up is in the game, and if you want to talk any further outside of YouTube, then you can join the Discord in the description below, so go join that if you're interested. Fortunately though, there is one way that the game forces creative comps, and it's a mechanic, not even a mechanic, it's a system that wasn't even intended to do that, and that's bans. Because bans are fantastic because they force people to play characters that they typically won't. Because if you have somebody that relies on playing Invis or Gambit or Emma or what's his face, Magneto, then you have to actually look at what your other options are. Something you don't usually pick. And sometimes it works, but at least you're doing something different. And that's when it becomes obvious that the variety was in the roster, the game just doesn't encourage it. Like, you really feel how much more enjoyable the game is when you're not constantly getting pegged by Daredevil, or when your DPS can actually do something because Sue isn't nullifying every single thing they touch. And that's not even getting into triple support, which just turns the whole match into this fucking miserable waiting game. Honestly, at this point, I'd even take role lock. Like, I know people hate that idea, but at least it would force some creativity. Right now, the answer is always the same. Oh, we're losing? Oh, we're defending a point? Okay, cool. Let's just stack triple support. Let's just up the fucking sustain and make the game a pain in the ass for everyone involved. That is such a cop-out. It is the laziest solution possible. I really wish there were systems in place that punished that kinds of roll stacking, even a little bit, diminishing returns, something, just anything that says, hey, maybe don't do the most degenerate option every single time because it works. And that's why bans feel so goddamn good. When you can actually remove the oppressive characters, the game starts asking more of people. You see skill show up again. Positioning actually matters. When a tank peels properly instead of just being pocketed nonstop, it pays off. When a DPS times something well, instead of dumping their entire kit into one character and praying they die, that matters too. I'm looking at you, Spider-Man. I get it. I don't want you buffed, but I understand the frustration. Now, some characters are always going to be better than others. That's fine, but it feels more natural. Like, it feels like player decisions are actually shaping how the match plays out instead of everything being dictated by a handful of really overpowered characters and systems. That's the part that really sucks. This version of the game only shows up when something gets removed. It's not the average experience. You don't get it because the game is encouraging better play. You get it because the game is accidentally allowing it. And honestly, that kind of tells you everything you need to know. Because the only time the game actually feels good to play is when you start removing systems, and that's a terrible fucking sign. Like, genuinely awful. And once you notice that, you start seeing the pattern everywhere else. The fix is almost always the same. Instead of asking people to get better or actually coordinate, the game just adds more safety. It's never asking you to position better or peel better. It just keeps handing you outs. If damage is too high, add more sustain. If you're getting outplayed by characters that actually require aim or timing, people just swap to auto-aim or auto-target characters like Namor, and that completely undercuts the skill threshold you're supposed to climb. The game never really lets you figure things out on your own. It doesn't trust people to play around pressure or to learn from their mistakes. The moment something feels uncomfortable, the answer is always to give people a bailout instead of letting them see what went wrong and improve. This isn't really about me wanting the game to be harder just for the sake of it. It's not some skill issue bullshit. It's just about feedback. I want the game to actually react to what I'm doing. If I take a risk and it works, I want to feel like, yeah, you cooked there, that was the right call. I read it correctly. And if it doesn't work, that is, I want to understand why, where I fucked up, what I could have done differently. But when everything is padded, none of that really matters. You can make decisions that are terrible and bail yourself out. So you never really learn. You can make a good decision and it barely matters because you just get out-sustained before anything happens. So after a while, even winning doesn't feel satisfying. And when you lose, it doesn't feel educational either. It just feels like the systems were stacked in a way that doesn't really benefit you one way or the other. And that's kind of why people stop playing. They're not going to say that the systems are overcorrecting. They're just going to say the game is boring or predictable. You can feel when a win streak or a loss streak is coming, and you can tell how the match is probably going to play out before it even really starts. And that's why bans really expose all of this without it really being the intention. They show how much fucking padding is actually there and what the game feels like when people are actually the ones making decisions again, and when skill and execution actually matter, and when you're not being funneled into the same few solutions every single game. And so once you've played that version of the game, it's really hard not to ask why that is in the baseline, why that feeling only shows up when something gets removed instead of being how the game is designed to feel in the first place. It's just as if it was designed to babysit you. Like, no matter how fucking brain dead you are, the game will find a way to squeeze value out of whatever you're doing. Unless you're on my team, then you're just brain dead, right? But seriously, nobody commits anymore unless they're absolutely positively sure it's going to go their way. Everyone's waiting for their sustain ult or a cooldown or the game just to give them a fucking opening. And even when you do make a play, half the time it just gets nullified by some passive bullshit. A shield pops, a healing ult, your ult gets countered by something you couldn't even avoid. It's just like, after a while, you don't even want to play anymore, right? And that's why people stop trying. Why would you bother making a risky play when the game tells you you're not going to be rewarded for it? Why bother learning better positioning when you can just stand somewhere random and rely on the game to bail you out? Or just pick a hit scan character and let your team stand in front of you while you farm damage. That's all you got to do. The most advanced skill you need as a hit scan character is knowing when to fall back to your team because you're a little bitch. Like, I can't even explain how fucking brain dead Hella is. She's so stupid, it actually pisses me off. And the game just rewards that kind of play. So why would you bother learning a difficult character when the game is just telling you, hey, pick the safe option and you'll get more value with half the effort? And so that's kind of where team comps also start going to shit. Once safety becomes the priority, then creativity doesn't even get a chance to show up. You stop thinking about what could work here, and then you think what's least likely to lose us the game. That's the whole thought process, and that's how you end up with the same bullshit, boring comps over and over again, not because people are not creative, but because the game just doesn't support or reward creativity. Which is why triple support exists. That's why Ultra Sustain exists. Not because people are stupid, even though some definitely are, but because the game is actively pushing you in that direction. It's basically saying, hey, if you stack enough insurance, nothing bad can really happen to you. And of course people are going to take that deal, especially in a competitive environment where nobody wants to be the reason the team loses. And even if you don't play those comps yourself, if you're a hipster of sorts, they're still going to affect how you play. You have to second guess plays you'd normally go for, and the whole pace of the match slows down because everybody's waiting for the same safety nets to finally break. I stopped playing Psylocke because of this. She just turned into an alt merchant. Sustain is way too high, her damage feels pointless, and on console at least, aiming with her is already a pain in the ass. I don't know what's going on PC where people keep putting her in like really high tiers on these rivals tier lists, but on console, it's just not worth the effort. Diving the backline to do chip damage that immediately gets healed feels pointless. And it's not just that the comp gets repetitive, the entire game feels repetitive. It's just the same slow grind until someone fucks up badly enough that even Sustain can't save them. Half the time, it just comes down to which team has the bigger liability. If somebody picks something that is not viable or plays like shit, that's the game. And again, none of this is because people don't want variety. You see that immediately when bans are involved. They adapt, they experiment. It might not always work, but at least they're engaged and they're thinking, which is more than what you can ask of most players in this game. And it just loops back to the same annoying question. If people are willing to do that when they're forced to, why isn't the game built to encourage that by default? Why does it take removing systems for the game to feel alive? Because once you start asking that, it's really hard not to feel like the game is constantly fighting against its own potential. So yeah, that's all I've got for this topic. If you guys have anything to add to it, please leave it down in the comment section down below. I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say about this, whether or not you guys have the same thoughts about how team-ups have been handled, and just ultimately how the game babysits people into not having to put in more effort to get better and whatnot. If you guys like these types of videos and want me to make more of them, make sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can join the Discord if you're interested in that. But at any rate, thank you all so much for watching as always. Happy New Year once again, and here's to another successful year on the interwebs. And until next time, make sure to take care, guys.